She closes the door behind her for the last time, and you're standing there wondering if she's already forgotten about you. Maybe you think she's out celebrating her freedom, texting someone new, living her best life while you're stuck replaying every conversation. That's what your brain wants you to believe right now, but what's actually happening on the other side of that closed door? The reality is so different from what you're imagining that it might completely change how you see this entire situation. Listen, I've studied this pattern for years, and what I'm about to share with you comes from real psychological research and hundreds of real situations. Not theories, not guesses, actual patterns that play out with scary consistency. Fact number 1. The relief phase is real, but it's shorter than you think. Right after she leaves, there's this window where she genuinely feels lighter. The arguments are over. The tension has dissolved. She can breathe again without wondering when the next conflict will hit. For about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month if the relationship was particularly heavy, she's experiencing what psychologists call separation euphoria. She's cleaning out her space, rearranging furniture, maybe hitting the gym harder than usual. From the outside, it looks like she's thriving without you. Here's the catch, though. This phase isn't what you think it is. It's not her being happy that you're gone. It's her being relieved that the struggle is gone. There's a massive difference, and most guys completely miss this distinction. She's not celebrating losing you specifically. She's decompressing from the emotional weight of a failing relationship. Think about the last time you finally finished a project that was stressing you out for months. Remember that moment when you submitted it or completed it? You felt amazing, right? That relief washed over you. But 3 days later, when the adrenaline wore off, you started thinking about whether you did it, right? Whether it was good enough, whether you missed something important. That's what's coming for her, except it's about a relationship which cuts a lot deeper than any work project ever could. So what does this mean for you right now? Stop checking her social media trying to decode whether she's happy or sad. That Instagram story of her at brunch with friends. It tells you nothing about what's happening in her head at 3 a.m. The relief phase is surface level, and it always passes. Fact number 2, she's not thinking about you. The way you're thinking about her. You're probably running through entire conversations in your head, aren't you? Analysing what you should have said differently, replaying the good moments, torturing yourself with the bad ones. You're thinking about her constantly, 20, 30, 50 times a day. Every song reminds you of something. Every place you drive past triggers a memory. But listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. She's not doing that. Not because she doesn't care, but because women process breakups fundamentally differently than men do. While you're still in the shock phase, she's been emotionally processing this breakup for weeks, or even months before she actually walked out. By the time she left, she'd already cried about it. She'd already talked to her friends about it. She'd already played out different scenarios in her head dozens of times. Think of it like this. You just got hit by a truck emotionally. You're still on the ground trying to figure out what happened. She saw the truck coming from a mile away, braced for impact, and had already started healing before the collision even occurred. Researchers call this preemptive grief. Women typically begin the mourning process for a relationship while they're still in it, the moment they realise it might not work. Here's where this gets really interesting though. Just because she's not obsessing over you right now doesn't mean you're not affecting her. You're in there. You've left an imprint, but she's cycling through other emotions first. Anger, maybe. Disappointment. Confusion about whether she made the right call. Relief, like we talked about. You're in the rotation, but you're not the only thing spinning in her head. What you need to understand is that your timeline and her timeline are completely out of sync. You're at the beginning of your emotional process. She's somewhere in the middle or even approaching the end of hers. That's why it feels like she's already moved on when really, she just started moving through this before you did. Fact number 3, the ghost of the relationship shows up in strange ways. About 4 to 6 weeks out, something shifts. She's going through her day, feeling okay, maybe even good, and then boom. She hears a song you used to sing badly in the car. She passes the restaurant where you had that ridiculous argument about whether hot dogs are sandwiches. She sees a couple doing something that reminds her of you two, and suddenly there's this wave. This is what psychologists call grief ambush, and it happens to everyone after a breakup, but it's particularly intense for the person who left because they weren't expecting it. Remember, she thought she'd processed everything. She thought she was ready. She thought leaving would solve the problem and she'd be fine. But the human brain doesn't work that cleanly. Let me paint you a picture. There's a woman named Maya who left her boyfriend of 3 years because he was emotionally unavailable. She felt good about her decision, strong, empowered even. Then one random Tuesday night she's cooking dinner and she reaches for the paprika and she remembers how her ex used to tease her about putting paprika on literally everything. That tiny stupid memory hits her so hard she has to sit down on her kitchen floor. She's not crying because she wants him back. She's crying because she's mourning the small intimacies that made up their daily life together. This is happening with her too. These micro moments where your absence becomes real in ways she didn't anticipate. The relief phase protects her from this for a while, but it can't hold back these memories forever. They leak through, and when they do, they hit different because she chose to create this absence. Now pay attention to this next part. When these moments happen, she doesn't usually reach out. You know why? Because she's questioning whether what she's feeling is real longing or just nostalgia. She's wondering if missing certain things about you means she made a mistake, or if it's just normal to miss parts of something that was a big part of your life. So she sits with it. She talks to her friends about it. She journals about it maybe, but she rarely picks up the phone. Fact number 4, she's dealing with more doubt than she'll ever show you. Here's something that might surprise you. The person who ends a relationship typically experiences more long-term doubt than the person who got left. Yeah, you read that right. You're dealing with rejection and loss, which is brutal, no question. But you have a clear narrative. She left, she made the choice, she decided you weren't worth fighting for. That narrative, as painful as it is clean. Her narrative, it's a mess. She's wondering if she gave up too easily. She's second-guessing every reason she had for leaving. She's asking herself if she was too harsh, too impatient, too demanding. What if she threw away something good because she was focused on what was wrong instead of what was right? What if the problems were fixable and she just didn't try hard enough? What if she never finds someone who makes her laugh the way you did, even if you had other issues? And get this. The stronger and more confident she appears on the outside, the more doubt she's usually wrestling with on the inside. Because she knows how this looks. She knows people might think she's cold or didn't care enough. She knows you're hurting, and even if she had good reasons to leave, that knowledge sits heavy on her. There's this psychological concept called decision regret, and it's incredibly common in major life choices. Studies show that people who make big decisions, even necessary ones, often experience waves of regret that can last for months or years. They're not regretting the outcome necessarily. They're regretting the loss involved in getting to that outcome. She might know logically that leaving was the right move, but emotionally she's still processing what it cost her. So what does this mean practically? It means that just because she's not coming back or reaching out, doesn't mean she's certain she made the right call. It means she's doing the same thing you're doing, just from a different angle. You're questioning why you weren't enough. She's questioning whether she should have tried to make not enough work anyway. Fact number 5. She's hyper-aware of your moves even. If she's not watching you, think she's not paying attention, but here's what's really happening. Even if she's not checking your profiles, her friends are. Even if she blocked you, someone in her circle hasn't. Information finds its way back to her. Did you start working out? She knows. Did you go out with friends and look like you're doing fine? She heard about it. Did you post something cryptic or emotional? Yeah, she saw it or someone told her about it. The psychology behind this is fascinating. There's something called hypervigilance after separation, where both people become acutely aware of any information about the other person, even when they're actively trying not to care. It's like when you're trying not to think about something, and that exact thing becomes all you can think about. She's in that space too. But here's the twist. The way she interprets what you're doing matters more than what you're actually doing. If you seem devastated, she might feel guilty, but she'll also feel validated in her decision because clearly the relationship meant more to you than your actions showed when you were together. If you seem completely fine, she might feel relieved initially, but then that relief often turns into something else. Wait, he's fine already? Was I that replaceable? Did any of it matter to him? There's no winning move here, by the way. That's not the point. The point is understanding that your life post-breakup is on her radar even when she's pretending it's not. And what's wild is that neutral information gets interpreted through an emotional lens. You grabbed coffee with someone? If she's in a good headspace, she thinks, good for him, moving on. If she's in a vulnerable moment, that same coffee becomes, wow, he replaced me fast. Let me give you a real example. There was this guy, Chris, who started training for a marathon after his girlfriend left. Completely healthy move, right? He was processing his emotions through physical activity, building discipline, doing something positive. But his ex Lauren heard about it through mutual friends, and her first thought wasn't good for him. It was he has time for a marathon but couldn't make time to work on us. Same action. Completely different interpretation based on where she was emotionally. Fact number 6. The 3-month mark changes everything. There's this weird psychological shift that happens around the 3-month point after a breakup, and almost nobody talks about it. The relief has worn off. The initial burst of freedom and independence has settled. The distractions of being newly single have lost their novelty, and suddenly she's sitting with the reality of what happened in a completely different way. This is when the what-if questions get loudest. Not necessarily what if I made a mistake, although that's in there, but bigger questions. What if I keep repeating the same patterns? What if I'm the problem? What if I'm too picky or not picky enough? What if I never feel that comfortable with someone again? The relationship isn't just about you anymore at this point. It becomes a mirror she's using to examine herself. Psychology research shows that it takes about 90 days for new routines to truly set in, and for the absence of someone to move from this is temporary to this is my new reality. Before that 3-month mark, part of her brain is still operating like you might come back into the picture. After it, she starts building a life that assumes you won't. That shift is massive, and it's often uncomfortable for her in ways she didn't expect. Here's what actually happens during this phase. She starts noticing the things about you that she actually misses versus the things she thought she'd miss. Maybe she thought she'd miss the big romantic gestures, but what she actually misses is how you always remember to buy the specific brand of tea she likes. Or she thought she'd miss the excitement, but what she misses is the safety of having someone who knew all her weird habits and loved her anyway. Think about this carefully. The 3-month mark is also when reality sets in about what dating again actually looks like. If she's tried dating, she's realizing that chemistry isn't easy to find, that most people are dealing with their own baggage, that starting over means explaining yourself to someone new, building trust from scratch, teaching someone how you like your coffee and what you need when you're upset. It's exhausting in a way she probably underestimated. So what's happening with her specifically right now? If you're past that 3-month window, she's reassessing everything with fresh eyes. If you're not there yet, just know that the way she sees this situation today will likely shift significantly once she crosses that threshold. Fact number 7, her moving on and her being over. You are not the same thing. This is the most misunderstood fact of all, and it's crucial you get this right. You can move on from a relationship and still carry feelings for the person. You can build a new life, date other people, even fall in love again, and still have a soft spot for what you had. Moving on means accepting that the relationship is over and building a life around that reality. Being over someone means the emotional connection has been severed completely. Most people move on long before they're truly over someone. She might be moving on right now, she might seem happy, functional, thriving even. But that doesn't mean she stopped caring about you as a person. It doesn't mean the relationship meant nothing. It doesn't mean she won't think about you randomly 5 years from now and wonder how you're doing. Human emotions are way more complex than the black and white narrative we create about breakups. Let me be straight with you about something. You're looking for evidence that she still cares because you think that evidence means there's hope. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Her caring doesn't change the fact that she left. Her missing you sometimes doesn't change her reasons for walking away. Her having doubts doesn't mean those doubts will outweigh whatever drove her to that door in the first place. The question isn't whether she still has feelings. The question is whether those feelings matter more than the problems that ended things. And most of the time, they don't. Not because the feelings aren't real, but because feelings alone can't sustain a relationship that's missing fundamental compatibility or respect or communication or whatever was broken between you two. So what do you do with all of this information? First, stop trying to read her mind from a distance. You're creating stories based on scraps of information, and those stories are probably wrong. The elaborate narrative you've built about her being happy without you, or already moved on, or never caring in the first place. It's fiction. Well-intentioned fiction designed to help you make sense of pain, but fiction nonetheless. Second, understand that her process isn't about you anymore, just like yours shouldn't be about her. She's dealing with her own grief, her own doubt, her own journey. You're dealing with yours. Those paths might run parallel for a while, but they're separate. What she's feeling or not feeling doesn't need to dictate your healing. Third, focus on becoming someone who wouldn't end up in this situation again, not by changing yourself to win her back, but by genuinely growing into a more aware, more emotionally intelligent version of yourself. If you two were wrong for each other, become right for the next person. If you made mistakes, learn from them. If she made mistakes, take note so you can spot those red flags earlier next time. The surprising facts about what happens after she walks out aren't meant to give you hope that she'll come back. They're meant to give you perspective. She's human. She's struggling too, just differently. She's not the villain you might be painting her as, and she's not the perfect angel you're romanticizing either. She's someone who made a choice, and now she's living with the consequences of that choice just like you're living with yours. Maybe she reaches out eventually. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe you find closure. Maybe you just find distance. But what definitely happens is that life continues. The door she closed becomes less important than the doors you choose to open for yourself. That's not a metaphor or a pep talk. That's just how time works. The intensity of this moment will fade, and what you do in that fading makes all the difference. You wanted to know what really happens after she walks out. Now you know. She's not as okay as she looks, but she's not as broken as you hope either. She's somewhere in the middle, just like you, trying to figure out if she made the right call and what comes next. That's the reality. No winners, no villains, just two people navigating the aftermath of something that didn't work out the way either of you planned.